Heyo and welcome to Bardom, the place to go on the internet if you're kind of bored and you might potentially be interested in hearing a story. Told specifically by this person. Okay, so, it's been a while since I posted anything, not that it really matters, but in that time I've been gone, I've been finding new stories. So I'm here to share one today. Now, I found out some interesting things about this story, which I should mention is it's The Robbers Bridegroom, and I found it in a book of Grimm's fairy tales, which I probably seem to do with every other story. But I found out that it was apparently adapted into a musical, it's been adapted into a novella, and today it's going to be adapted into a YouTube video, so that might potentially be exciting. I don't know. Anyway, so I don't want to waste too much time I don't want to spend too much time more on introducing it. So, without further ado, The Robber's Bridegroom. I hope you enjoy. Once upon a time there lived a farmer who had a relatively pretty daughter. Now, as his daughter got older, the father began to wonder, who's my daughter going to marry when she gets older? Who's going to take care of her when I'm gone? It was a question that plagued him so much that one day he decided to look around at the men in the town and see if there was anyone who he honestly wanted as a son-in-law. He quickly realized that his prospects were slim, because there wasn't one man who he honestly wanted as a son-in-law that was eligible. So the father prayed and prayed that maybe one day a good man would come into town who he thought would be worthy of his daughter. And not very long after, his prayers were answered in the guise of a merchant who came into town. The father took one look at this guy and was like, I want you on my team. Because this guy was, like, I guess handsome and, well dressed, very, very proper and good manners, I guess. So it wasn't very long before the father called his daughter down to the front room or whatever, and said, "Daughter, come meet your new fiance." That must have been a terrible day for that daughter because, well, she wasn't into the entire idea at all. I mean, she was polite about it, and she didn't say anything about her lack of desire to marry at that moment, or especially to this stranger. And the daughter, to her credit, did try to love this guy. But as time went on, she couldn't. It even got to the point where every time she thought of him or saw her fiance, she would get sick to her stomach. Whether it was because she felt bad for lying about this entire situation to this guy and to her father and maybe even to herself, or whether it was because she had just a really bad vibe from this guy, who knows, but she wasn't in for it. So one day, her fiance invites her over and is like, "I'd like to invite you to a party I'm having on Sunday. Will you please come? My family and friends are all dying to meet you. They'll all be there." Where is it that you live again? I forget. Were you not paying attention? We talked about this last week. I live in the middle of the dark forest. Oh, you live in the middle of the dark forest. I don't know if that's safe. I mean, it's a big place and the signage is really bad, and I've heard that there are all these bad stuff in there. I mean, I can get easily lost. Oh, don't worry. I won't be able to walk you to my house, but, I'll leave you a pathway of ashes. You'll find my house no problem. Oh, a pathway of ashes? I guess I'm free on Sunday. I guess I can go. And so the daughter's fiance just leaves her standing there, acknowledging that she'll be there. And the daughter's just like, damn, what did I just get myself into? So Sunday comes around, and she doesn't want to get up out of bed at all. She feels sick to her stomach, but she feels at least honor bound, maybe to her father, maybe to this guy. But she gets up out of bed anyway and goes down to see if she can stomach anything for breakfast. Well, she doesn't eat anything, but she does notice a bag of beans and a bag of peas. And suddenly her mind is reminded of a story she heard a couple months back about these two kids getting lost in the dark forest, and there was something about a witch and a gingerbread house, but specifically she remembered that these kids had breadcrumbs that they left for themselves to get home. Well, she suddenly decided that these beans and peas would be the perfect breadcrumbs for her. So she picked them up off the counter and ran out to find this path of ashes. Now she did, and it didn't take her very long to find the path that was left for her. It went deep into the dark forest, and although she wasn't crazy about it, she followed it. Deeper and deeper and deeper. At every step she took, to her left and to her right, to her left and to her right, she threw a bean or a pea. So when she came to the end of this path, she found a house. Clearly, no one was there at the time, but she went up to the door and knocked on the door, and found that it pushed open very easily. And as soon as she went inside, she was met with the screaming of a bird, shouting, turn back, young maiden fair, for this is a robber's murderer," or something to that effect, but it was bad. It was really bad. So the daughter is like, that's a weird thing for a bird to scream at me, because birds don't normally say things. But she pushed in anyway and tried to see if she could find another human. Now she managed to. She went up to an upper room and saw an old lady sitting in front of a big fire with a big cauldron over it. And the old lady was stirring this cauldron slowly. After a moment of apprehensiveness, the daughter walked in further and said, "Hi, ma'am, I'm real sorry to bother you, but by any chance, do you happen to know if my fiance lives here?" And the old woman says, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry that you came here. Yeah, you see, the guy that you're involved with and that you're engaged to, he's part of a group of robbers and cannibals, and they trick young girls into marrying them, and they take all their worldly possessions, and they're going to be back soon, and if they find you here, you're going to get added to the menu tonight, so I would suggest just go on home, take my advice, go." So very suddenly, the daughter's bad feelings that she had been having about this guy make all the sense in the world, and she decides she's going to take the old granny's advice and just go home. It would be awesome if she could, but she can't, because the front door slams open, and in come all the men and her fiance, drunk, screaming, and dragging a young girl with them. Clearly doesn't want to be there. And they're probably also screaming some things about the feast that they're going to have later that night. And the daughter realizes how bad this is. So she rushes back into the room with the old lady, slams the door behind her, and is like, shoot, I gotta hide, what do I do? Now, the old granny is a good lady and says, I pity you. You seem like a sweet girl, so just, how about you go hide behind those boxes over there, and I'll make sure you get home to your family. The daughter doesn't even question it. She just runs across the room, vaults over the barrels and boxes and whatnot, and plants herself right in the hiding spot. Just at the instant the door to the room she's in slams open against the door, and again, in come the men carousing drunk and dragging the young girl. I really wish that I could tell this story with a huge twist at the climax where the daughter jumps out from behind her hiding spot on a white steed that just magically appears out of nowhere, and she has a huge shining sword that she uses to scare away the villains and the bad guys, and she rescues the damsel in distress, and they go home to live happy lives with their families. Unfortunately, that's not how the story ends. What ends up happening is the men force a screaming village girl to drink red wine, white wine, and some yellow stuff that stops her heart. And after this, they strip her of everything, right down to the bone. And as the daughter is sitting there in her hiding spot watching this, she realizes that she has to stop these guys. I mean, she can't do anything physically because, she doesn't have a sword or a giant steed. It would be cool if she did, but she doesn't. So she's trying to think of what evidence that she can gather that would be indisputable and clearly show what happened. And she gets lucky, sort of. You see, there's a ring left on the village girl's finger. And one of the men decides that they want it because it's pretty. And so they try to pull it off, but they can't. So they decide, hey, you know what? A hatchet beats everything. So they take a hatchet and chop it off. And it goes flying across the room directly into the daughter's lap. Yes, evidence. Wonderful. Except not so wonderful, because now there's a light coming closer and closer to the girl's hiding spot, and she could very well get found out. So she's sitting there quietly, waiting, holding her breath. And she's saved. The old granny steps in and says, Now come on, boys, go sit back down and have some more drinks. It's only a ring and a finger. It's not like it's going to get up and walk away. Search for it tomorrow when you're sober. Now the men take Granny's advice and go sit back down, and very quickly pass out from the sleeping draught that the granny mixed in with their wine that she's been serving all night. So they're not going to wake up until the morning, and that gives the next morning, and that gives ample time for the daughter to get away. So the granny goes over to the daughter's hiding spot and says, "Now come on, honey, stand up. We're gonna get you home safe. Don't worry about them. They'll be asleep until tomorrow, or maybe even the next day." So the daughter gets up at her hiding spot, steps carefully over the sleeping men till they get to the door, and she steps out into the calm, cool, clear night and to her freedom. Now, fortunately for the daughter, even though the path of ashes that she originally followed was gone, well, because this is a fairy tale forest, of course, plants don't grow logically. They spring up magically, and she follows this magically grown path of the beans and the peas she planted earlier. She follows that back to the main road, to her bed, and to a much-needed rest. Now, the daughter isn't able to go to the place and turn these guys in right away, but the way she does turn these guys in, it's worth telling. Now, the daughter is sitting around at her wedding party listening to everyone tell stories, and it comes to be her turn to tell a story. So she agrees to tell everyone about a dream she recently had. She dreamt, as she told them, that she went into the dark forest, following a path of ashes at the invitation of her husband. And at the end of this path, there was a house, which she went into and was screamed at by a bird. The men were kind of concerned because that sounded very similar to their house. And she told how she went in and how she met the old lady, and the old lady is warning. And at this point, the men realize what's happening, and they're trying to do everything they can to stop her from telling more. So her husband says, "Now that was just a dream. That would never happen in real life." "Yeah, I know, but it's still my turn to tell a story, so listen up." And the daughter told of how she witnessed the neighboring village girl forced to drink the red wine, the white wine, and the yellow stuff. And she told of the gruesome feast that took place afterward. She told it quite in detail, and everyone was trying to shut her up at this point, especially the robbers. But then she got to the point where she told about how they chopped off the finger and the ring, and it went flying directly into her lap. And it was at that moment that she produced that ring and the finger. And, well, don't know how long that trial took, but there was sufficient evidence gathered against these guys. And they were put away, where they would never hurt another person. And certainly the girl lived a longer life. I kind of wonder what happened with her dad's matchmaking skills. I hope she got to pick her own man when she was ready for marriage. So that's it for this story. What did you think? Did you like it? Did you hate it? If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to hear more. I really want to hear what people have to say about this story. I'd be very interested in knowing. It's one that I kind of have mixed feelings about, and I want to know how other people feel too. Anyway, thank you so much for taking the 15 minutes out of your day to watch these videos, if you watch all the way through to the end. So on that note, I'll leave everyone wherever you are. Have a good day, have a good night. Anyway, bye!